And we're live. Good morning. 28th of September. Can you believe it? It's almost October. Here at our new home in Huntsville, Utah, which is overlooking the Pine View, beautiful lake with these multiple fingers. It's such a beautiful view. But the whole valley is red and orange. It's just so beautiful this time of year. The leaves have turned a little earlier than normal. And it's just spectacular to see. So welcome, everybody. It's great to be with you. This morning, my producer is celebrating Yom Kippur and won't be with us today. So I'm on my own. So as you share comments, I'll do my very best to share them with everyone else on the screen so that we can have a good morning. Have several things I want to share with you this morning. First and most importantly, Dr. Hartman, Robert Hartman, PhD in mathematics, philosophy, a JD in law, Juris Doctorate. Incredible human being. For the assessment, the habit finder assessment, using the formal science of axiological mathematics and Cantor's transfinite calculus. You don't need to remember all those things. But in his voluminous writings, he made this statement. And I still remember the first time I read it. The objective is to be what? Real, genuine, and authentic, without the need to impress, pretend, feel shame, or fear. Then he went on to write, this is the most difficult task in our mortal existence and the highest level of maturity. Well, I'm going to do my best to take you into this space because it impacts us every single day. It's when we're showing up somewhere and do we get to just be real, genuine, and authentic? Or do we have to show up in a way that will impress people? Impress, leave an imprint on them, an impression. Do we need to pretend that things are better than they are to feel like we can be part of it? Do we feel shame? Shame from the root word sham, a covering. When we feel guilt, we feel bad about what we've done. When we feel shame, we feel bad about who we are. So we don't want to be feeling bad about who we are. Maybe there are things we've done that we'd like to correct in our lives, but not about ourselves personally, intrinsically. And last is fear, false evidence appearing real. That release of cortisol, the activation of our amygdala when something triggers us. And quite often that which triggers us is not real. We leap ahead. This is all we know, and we jump ahead to this, and based on that, we get this surge of cortisol. That false evidence appears real, so we take it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Pretty soon we're spiraling out of control. These are difficult things to overcome. So let's start with a couple. In scroll number 2, OgMent makes this comment. Scroll number 2, in The Greatest Salesman in the World. This is the scroll on love. I'll greet this day with love in my heart. Agape love, a heightened level of awareness. He says, and how will I act? I will love all manners of men, for each has qualities to be admired, even though they be hidden. That's interesting. Hidden. With love, I will tear down the wall of hate and suspicion, which they have built round their hearts, and in its place, I will build a bridge so that my love, my agape, can enter their soul. Their soul. It's my intention this morning to see if I can't tear down some of those walls of suspicion. Hate's a tough word, but suspicion. We live in a world where how are they going to perceive me? What are they going to say? What are they going to think about me? And I might say we'd be less concerned about what people think about us if we knew how little they actually do. Most of the conversation is going on in our head about us, not in their head about us. In their head, the conversation is going on about them. So in our head, it's going on about us. And what does it do to us? I think one of the great examples, I just remember this senior vice president of an educational institution had taken the assessment in preparation for a debrief. And I opened it up and was preparing, and he'd taken it 6 times. And I thought, I know why he did this. But I asked him, I said, why did you take it 6 times? And he said, I was trying to get it right. He lived in academia, right, wrong, win, lose, life, death, pass, fail, A, B, C, grades. The truth is we live in life, not in academia. We live in life. We have a conversation going on with us about us, and we show up. And sometimes we can be really uncomfortable because of the dialogue going on inside our heads. And some of the most common dialogue sounds like this. I can't let them see who I really am, because then they wouldn't hire me, or they wouldn't partner with me. They wouldn't want to be my friend. Well, the person we're afraid they'd find are our unhealthy habits of thinking. Our true self, our magnificent self, is the one that we want to finally clean up. Now, this weekend, Ramon and I had the opportunity to get parts of our new home organized. And some of you have seen this picture before, but now it's in its new place. I want to share it with you. You see this? This is the Bronc-buster, Remington. This is a monumental version. It stands 5 feet 4 inches tall. When I found this statue, it had been in someone's garage for 10 years. And prior to that, in their yard for 20. It was covered with calcium deposits, especially on the base. The base was almost pure white. I made an offer to buy it, and he didn't accept it. But 9 months later, he called back and said, do you remember me? I was the one with the Remington. Oh, yeah, I remember you. He said, if you'll pick this up by tomorrow night, you can have it. So Paul and I took a trailer down there, and we loaded up. It weighs about 600 pounds. And we got it loaded, and I put it in the garage and began the meticulous process of removing the calcium deposits. What does that take? It takes a little bit of heat. So right on the neck is where I started, because it was this largest area that was semi-unobstructed by extra things. And I heated up a small section. And then you paint it with a hard wax with a brush. And the matte wax melts and it starts to break down the calcium deposits. Then you brush it off. And then you use a spade. I would say 3 inches by 3 inches, maybe. And all of a sudden, this beautiful patina came shining through. It inspired me. Every time in between sessions, I would come out and work on it just a little bit more and a little bit more. It took several weeks. And then we finally got it done. And the patina was shining through. Now, what's interesting, that patina is very thin, so you have to be very careful to protect it. But I keep that in my entryway. It was in our former home, and now it's in our new home, prominently placed. Not necessarily for someone else to come and see it. It's beautiful to look at. But for me, I walk by it every morning. It reminds me that every one of us have got a lot of stuff that's happened. Habits of thinking. They're like the calcium deposits on a beautiful patina. You see, underneath all those unhealthy habits of thinking, we find our true self. And we know it's there because we have access a few times. I'll give you an example of one of the most common places we access it. if we're ever interviewing for a job, we show very best behavior. Excuse me. That's not fake or phony. That's not fake or phony. That is your true self, your authentic self, your anthos hectic, your true self. It's hard to sustain because our unhealthy habits of thinking have such an impact on us that when pressure comes back, when the job, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, all that pressure comes back, and all of a sudden they start having an impact again on our lives. And the person who interviewed us is wondering what happened. That person I saw is not the person I now have. Just an aside, we're just wrapping up an assessment for interviewers to use to get past that presentation, to get to the habits of thinking, to see what they're going to be managing, and see if they can't help that person get over some of those habits so that person who shows up in the interview can be more present in the job. It's so exciting. But we know that experience. If you've ever dated, remember the first time you went on a date? If you got a committed companion, a spouse, remember the first time you dated. You're in your very great person. And maybe like me, you pull out the chair, you open the door. Are we still doing those things? Are our habits of thinking, the busyness of life taking us over? We know that it's there. So to be real and genuine and authentic simply means that we get comfortable having conversations, to have relationships, real, root word relationships. So we're going to be having these moments where we're connecting with another human being. And what do we bring with us? Do we bring a need to impress or pretend or feel shame or fear? If we do, it'll most likely be a barrier in the conversation. If we could come and just be real, show up listening, stepping into their world. Imagine how this. Oops, we lost that for a moment. I hope we're back. Genius is to, or genuine, root word genus, genuine, genius, to own our genius and bring it fully to the service of another person. You ever thought that that was the definition of being genuine? You know, if we don't bring our genius, we rob ourselves and everyone else of our best self. Why would we ever do that? Well, because we've got dialogue that says maybe we're not worthy or maybe we're not good enough. And so we don't want to try to be too big. You know, we don't want to be seen. You know, all that. You hear the dialogue around impress, pretend, shame, and fear that will keep us from owning our genius and bringing it fully to the service of another person. And lastly, authentic, anthos, our true self, being our true self. If you've taken your habit finder assessment, the green in the measurement, that's your true self. That's your authentic self. How many times does a habit try to take us off of that center? Can you start to see why this is the most difficult task in our mortal existence? And the highest level of maturity. To mature means to ripen, to grow. So we have grown, and when we grow, we are able to be real and genuine and authentic. Let's take those 4 tethers, we call them, and just explore them just a little bit this next week. When you're in a conversation, ask, am I trying to impress somebody? Am I trying to pretend that something is bigger or better than it actually is? Am I feeling shame, feeling bad about who I am, versus separating myself from a behavior and saying, I don't like that either. I'm going to shift that behavior. I'm going to get rid of that challenge. And fear. How often do we start playing things out in our mind and we just blow them into an emotional frenzy? We all do it. but let's do it less. Let's catch ourselves before we get down that road, because once we're down there and that cortisol surging in our body and our amygdala has shut down our prefrontal cortex, our empathy, practical judgment, and common sense, we're rendered emotionally paralyzed for some time, which we can't afford to be. So let's become conscious this next week when those things are happening and say, what could I do at this moment just to be myself? Myself. I hope you're okay with me sharing these. I was in Maui visiting Spar Street, who's an amazing artist. And his home is his gallery. And I was standing at the beginning of a long hallway, and at the very end of the hallway was this amazing painting. I said, Spar, you have to tell me about this painting. Let me show it to you. This is the painting. This is the second thing that hangs in the entryway. It's called The Flame Within. The Flame Within. I said, Spar, I have to buy this from you. So we negotiated. He sent it to me, and then he sent me all the materials to have our framer build this frame to put around this painting. I can just stand and look at this for a long time. Just look at it with me. Because in scroll number 4, Og says, within me burns a flame. One of my favorite quotes in the scrolls. Passed down from generations uncounted. And its heat is a constant irritation to my spirit to be better than I am. I will fan these flames of dissatisfaction and proclaim my uniqueness to the world. Just feel this for a moment. I want you to feel how often we put wet blankets of shame on this flame. It's time to take the wet blankets off, to release it from fear. You don't need to impress anyone. You are magnificent. You are unique. It's time to proclaim your uniqueness to the world. Let me read this while you watch this. Just look at this. Vain attempts to imitate others no longer will I make. Instead, I'll place my uniqueness on display in the marketplace. I will proclaim it, yea, I will sell it. I will begin now to accent my differences, hide my similarities. So too will I apply this principle to the goods I sell. Salesmen and goods, different from all others, and proud of the difference. It is time to let our flame burn bright, to be real, to love people free of doubt and fear and anxiety and shame, to really be present with them, to embrace this flame and our uniqueness, because your gifts and talents are your natural genius. Look at your assessment, those green measurements, this natural genius, to truly bring it fully to the service of another person. So many of you have very high levels of empathy, but you let unhealthy habits of thinking and self-esteem talk you out of them. Inspired idea, talk yourself out of them. Sometimes we need a deadline or pressure to get us to unleash our genius in our common sense and practical judgment. We know what needs to be done. We just have dialogue that says we don't. It's not true. Because we know when we jump in and do it, it's like, wow, that wasn't so hard. Yeah, because we embraced our genius. Let this flame burn. Let this flame burn. Then you get to be your true self. And then you're not uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable. You know, we have a situation every once in a while when we ask someone to take an assessment, and they're in a position of authority. And they're kind of uncomfortable. They don't want to be exposed. Well, there's no exposing. We all have habits of thinking. We all have challenges. I've debriefed over 7,000 assessments. Oh my goodness. We all have them. I have them. I'm working on them daily. Are you working on them? Let us not try to pretend to be perfect or try to impress people. Let us just be who we are, because when we are, we give everybody else permission to be real and genuine and authentic. Yeah. If you thought for a moment maturity came from age, it's not the case. It comes from being real and genuine and authentic without the need to impress, pretend, feel shame, or fear. Okay? Let's start working on this calcium deposits that's hiding our patina. Let us embrace this flame. Let's fan the flame of dissatisfaction and proclaim that uniqueness to the world. You are a magnificent creature. Please own your gifting. Thanks, everyone. Do you notice that left-hand corner up there, my sweetheart is working on moving some pictures into another area of the house. So good to see her with us this morning. Thanks, everyone. Blessings to you. Have the best week of your life. And we'll come back next Monday and take it on again. Thanks, everyone.